Donald Trump calls those who were arrested for trying to overthrow democracy hostages. Yes, hostages. In a related story, Sidney Powell, who also wanted to overthrow democracy, former Trump attorney, not only has she pled guilty, naturally, she has now paid money back to the state of Georgia for her high crimes. We got all of it. Let's put it up full mass. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. The dictator-in-chief wannabe, Donald Trump, former president of the United States, on Thursday referred to those jailed over their actions during the January 6th terrorist attack at the Capitol. He said they're hostages during a rally with supporters in Texas. Naturally, they ate this stuff up. Trump walked on stage at a Houston rally to Lee Greenwood's "God Bless the USA," as he typically does. But when he concluded a song in which Trump collaborated with a chorus of inmates detained on charges related to the January 6th insurrection began to play, and former President Trump stood saluting. Okay? Now, let me explain a few things at this point. Donald Trump did a mixtape with terrorists. Okay? You can find it on Spotify. I'm not kidding you. It is on Spotify, YouTube. It's out there. It's an actual song with people who were arrested for trying to overthrow the government. So when Donald Trump says they're hostages, why would that be a shock to anyone? The man has already given you the wink and the nod that he is absolutely in support of their actions. But remember, Donald Trump is also creating the ultimate win-win for himself. Trump being a clinical narcissist, he's not going to do anything that actually benefits someone else. If it does benefit someone else, it's only because it first benefits him. So the narrative of hostages sets himself up in case he does go to jail, in case he does get arrested, in case he does get found guilty. Well, what does that make him? That makes him the chief hostage of the United States of America. He's just a POW, a prisoner of political war, so to speak. There's more. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And you know what that was, he said at the rally. I call them J6 hostages, not prisoners. I call them the hostages. What's happened? And you know, it's a shame. In the song Justice for All, which was released on multiple streaming services in March, Trump is heard reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. The 45th president's portion of the mixtape follows a chorus of Jan 6 inmates credited on the song as the J6 Prison Choir, who sing the Star-Spangled Banner. The end of the song features the chorus repeatedly chanting, USA, USA. It's all propaganda, indoctrination, manipulation. Monday, raised from the song was reportedly directed to families of the Jan 6 mob who participated on the track. Trump has repeatedly expressed sympathy for rioters charged in connection to this terrorist attack. His supporters violently clashed with law enforcement, stormed the complex to try and stop the certification of the victory of Biden in the 2020 election. The former president has said he would consider pardoning some of those charged in connection to the Capitol attack. And he spoke earlier this year at a fundraiser organized for Jan 6 defendants. Trump himself is facing federal charges in Washington, D.C. over his attempts to remain in power after losing the election. And he is facing charges in Georgia over his efforts to overturn the state's 2020 election results. But he's still polling at number one. He still, in many surveys, many polls, he still defeats Biden. Polls are not predictions, they're snapshots, okay? Now let's go to the person who has pleaded guilty to her high crimes in connection to Trump. Put her up for a mask. You're looking at former Trump attorney Sidney Powell. Georgia Secretary of State, Chief Operations Officer Gabe Sterling. Put up Gabe. You know, Gabe does not agree with my political philosophy here in the state of Georgia, but I gotta tell you, I like Gabe's style. He has not backed down from Trump one time during this interplay in Georgia. So Gabe Sterling, who's the Chief Operations Officer for the Georgia Secretary of State, he is not an elected official. He is, in fact, an employee. He displayed the restitution check former President Donald Trump's attorney, Sidney Powell, gave to them because of her high crimes in the state. She pleaded guilty to the 2020 election interference case. Quote, Gabe says, yesterday afternoon, we received our first restitution check from Sidney Powell. It's a small down payment on what should be owed to the voters and people of Georgia, end quote. Sterling told reporters during a news conference on Wednesday. Deidre Dukes of Fox 5 did a great job on that story. All right, let the games begin. Who are the January 6th terrorists in the context of Trump's strategy? Well, he's their proxy, and they are his proxy. So instead of him laying out a plan that basically is a plan that fully embraces white supremacist notion, instead of just giving you the blueprint, A, B, C, D, he gives you a symbol. He gives you a scenario. He gives you a mixtape. If you don't get it by now, you never will. And if you do get it, well, we know what side of the fence you're on. Ben, thoughts here?
So much in this double story. Firstly, I hope in the future when there's a Trump quote, you let me read it in Trump's voice, because it really conveys the idiocy to another level. I mean, he literally went on in that same speech to say, on that track, I said the beautiful words. You remember the phrase Pledge of Allegiance? I said the beautiful words.
I can't remember.
I mean, he's the most insane person in the world, but it's long understood that he is an evil person. It's long understood that people who support him are morally very flexible and are okay with someone that doesn't believe in the very basis of our democracy. What astounds me over and over again is just how indoctrinated, how hypnotized, and how, with all respect, and there's not much of it there, unintelligent they are. They don't have the ability to see how fake the guy is. He's not even an evil leader that will achieve their evil goals on their behalf. Like you said, he just does what he wants, and they get lucky if it aligns, because he just all the time makes it clear. Their memories are so short. He says again, I'm considering pardoning some of the J6 people, but then he calls them hostages. If they're hostages, wouldn't you pardon all of them immediately?
Right.
Let alone rescue them? Why don't you go break in with your Trump jet and bring them all up to safety out of the prison they're in for the crime that you encourage them and go to them into doing? So how did they not think in their brains, wait a minute, he said he might pardon only some of us, but then does a song with us to get attention and get himself on the Billboard charts, where he bragged in the same speech, Taylor Swift and Miley Cyrus were number 1 and 2, and we knocked them off. We knocked them off. All he cares about is being on the damn charts. And they don't remember, but when he was in office and he was pardoning people at the end of his term, he didn't pardon us. So maybe that's BS. So maybe he's just saying it to get elected again. Like, they don't even put together the basic pieces, nor the piece that his lawyer, one of his many, because so many quit and so many end up not wanting to work with him, so he has the bottom of the barrel to scrape from. people whose faces leak and people who look like they're being held hostage themselves while working for him, pleads guilty to election interference, writes a check. I'd love to know the amount, but writes a check for it. And Trump says it's all a scam. It's all a witch hunt. Okay. And I don't know if I'm familiar with how witch hunts go, but they normally don't come with barrels of evidence and guilty pleas and convictions. They seem to usually come with somebody saying, I'm not a witch, please don't burn me at the stake. So basic words. It's exactly what we were warned about in Orwell's 1984. It's you don't believe what your own eyes show you. And once you get to that place, we are so far gone. Doc, I need stronger coffee.
Yeah, we are here, dear brother, and we are in the twilight zone, as I proffer to my students. Okay.
Submitted for your approval.
That's right.
A country full of people who are so far gone, their own brains don't function in the way they used to when they were
You need to do the remake.
Before the Trump zone. I do. I'm not against it. I'm a big Rod Serling fan because it's the only way I can feel like I relate to the country I live in lately.
There you go. I still can't. This is so insane. All right. We'll bring you updates as they come.